Well, it's kind of a long story. Um, when I was a teenager, I did judo. And when I was doing judo for the first while, I was like everybody else. I was a little bit more, uh, I trained harder generally. I was more determined, perhaps, more obsessive. But I was just like everybody else, and I was plodding along, learning this, learning that, doing this, getting better slowly, like people do. And because I was obsessed with it, I decided I didn't have enough training time. I increased the training time as much as I could. Every time the school was open, I even went to I went to a Marine base so I could train there with my teacher who taught there. And, so I did everything I could. It still wasn't enough. And so what I started to do, in addition to that, was I started to train in my mind. I started to train uh, techniques, try to do them in my mind. And when I would do that, I go back to the gym, I go back to the dojo, on the mats, and then try it and see what did I train wrong in my mind. Say, where didn't it fit? And so over time, I started to get, oh, I see. I have to create in my mind an experience that matches the exact relationship on the mat. So that, people have two arms and two legs. They have weight. They resist perhaps. They move this way. They have balance, etc. My body moves like this. My body moves like that. Speed, timing, gravity, all these things are being included in my experience. And so I started to do that. I started to craft that so that I could actually start doing the technique and start training. I would sit in a chair in an alcove at home, and I would go over these techniques again and again. And I knew I was on to something when I could fail. And I would do it. I would do the technique and it wouldn't work, or it wouldn't work well. And I'd do it again, it wouldn't work well. See? And so I knew, okay, now I'm really matching, because that's my experience in the gym. It's like, it's not working well. And so I would then alter a little this and alter that, and I would change this until finally, here we go. And I would find something, and I'd find how to make it work, and make it work, and make it work easily. And then I'd go back to the mats, and it indeed worked, just like it did in my mind. I could make it work, boom, boom, and it would work. And so that I was impressed with. See, that was a good training. It actually worked better than just training on the mats. And then in doing that, and this was a matter of months. Wasn't a matter of years. I did this in a matter of months, 9 months, perhaps, something like that. And in doing that and concentrating in that way, perhaps, I didn't foresee it coming, but then all of a sudden I had like this breakthrough, and I understood judo. All of a sudden I understood judo. I understood what it was supposed to be doing. I understood how it could be easy, and that it was supposed to be easy, and where I got it. And just this sudden realization, I suspect, from doing that work that I had done previously. And, so I sort of entered into a contemplation and investigation on kind of what is this and how does it work. Now that breakthrough, that what I call sometimes judo enlightenment, not really enlightenment, but see, and that made all the difference. I went overnight from being just like everybody else to being far better than everybody else in the dojo. This is overnight, in a matter of days. And I knew where the techniques were. I could find them rapidly, one after the other. And in my first, this period of time, I was a white belt, and then, Gokyu, and then got Yonkyu. And then after this, I went from brown belt. Pretty soon I got brown belt, 3rd degree, brown belt, 2nd degree, brown belt, 1st degree, and Shodan, black belt, in a period of a year and 2 months. Say. Whereas before it was almost a year, like 9 months, just plodding along. And then I just screamed through it. And the teacher held me back because there were senior men. I was about 18 at the time. I think, no, I was 16, about 16 at the time, that there were men, old men there who had been there for years, 5 years or more, and they hadn't gotten their black belt, and it would just be too embarrassing to have them do it. So he held me back, and so what I did, and that's one of the reasons why it took a little longer. It could have been done more easily, faster. See, because I really knew what this thing was, and it just came fast. And I spent time then training these older guys to get better, see? And I was working with them, training them to get better so that they could pass their black belt so I could get mine and, move on. And so from this kind of breakthrough and the consequences of the breakthrough, the shift that occurred from the breakthrough, I was sold, say. So my entire relationship to stuff in the future became that effort, trying to grasp what something really is, trying to grasp and make a breakthrough to understand it, not just plod through the distance. So I did martial art, martial art, all kinds of martial arts, other kinds of martial arts, every martial art there is, and learned, the traditions, understood the principles that they were operating out of, their beliefs, etc., trained the physical, got good at that, wasn't enough, did other stuff. Some were better than others. In any case, as I progressed through all these martial arts, I noticed that so I kept moving from the more brute strength kind of stuff to the easier, effortless stuff, like I had done in judo, the same kind of progression from like this strength technical to real art and effortless. And so I moved more toward this idea of internal martial arts, Tai Chi, Xingyi Bakua, like that, Aikido, things like that. It seemed more fluid. They seemed more, I did Kung Fu's too for a lot of that. It's a little more fluid. And then from fluid, I went to a little more, effortless. And I was intrigued by this idea of internal power. That sounded really neat. And I watched these little Chinese movies back then and, people doing these things. And, okay, this was neat, and I wanted to be able to do stuff, magical stuff. And, so I embarked on that, and I learned that kind of stuff, and it was interesting, but none of it was truly effortless. It was completely effortless. It was a more sophisticated use of strength. And I wanted complete effortlessness, and having had gone in this direction, I wanted to go to the end. I wanted all the way. I started this, I wanted to finish it. And so I want complete effortless. That means losing no effort at all and somehow still having power. And so at that time, I was training 8-10 hours a day in different schools, mostly in a Chinatown basement, but I did judo, I did boxing, Western boxing in a gym in Oakland, and some other stuff, but mostly, and studied on my own and trained with my friends and colleagues. But a lot of it, the bulk of it, was in a Chinatown basement, which did all sorts of martial arts. And I had already, won tournaments. I'd already, I had many black belts in different arts. I was very good at different arts. I won all the time. And I wanted this effortless power. So I wasn't obsessed with winning. I was obsessed with winning effortlessly. And so I embarked on that. And so everything I did in the schools, everything I did, I started with complete relaxation and using no effort at all. Movement, but no effort. And as you could imagine, I failed. So I try to throw people or push them or hit them or whatever without any effort. And it was not effective. So that's 8 hours, 10 hours of doing that and being ineffective, not being able to produce any results. And then I do that one day, and I did another day, and I did another day, and the days went by, and nothing, zero, zilch. I could stay relaxed. Now, could I have produced a result? Certainly, of course, I produced results all the time. I just had to use some strength. I had to use some strength, mechanics, technical things. Boom, I could, produce the result. Even a little strength, less strength perhaps than just like muscling something, but still there was strength. And I was working on using no strength at all, none, zero, zilch. And you know, I couldn't do it. So weeks went by, months went by, more months went by, nothing, zero. I couldn't do it. I stayed relaxed. I kept searching. I kept playing with it. I kept experimenting. I kept looking into it. And I lost, failed, constantly. And I did that, say, for the better part of a year, failing. It didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me to give up. And it was only until I had students for decades and decades that I realized that, oh, that's an unusual thing. See, for most people, it would occur to them to give up the first day. See, the first 5 minutes, if it didn't work, hey, do something else. You see? But it didn't occur to me to give up, and I kept working. And then after about 10 months or so, 9-10 months in there, something would work. Somebody would fly across the room or something, or knock somebody. They'd fall down or whatever it was, and I didn't know how it worked really or why. And then I couldn't find it again. And then maybe weeks later, something would happen and still didn't know. And then I started to notice mind states or states of experience, ways I was when those things happened. And so I started to produce those more and more. And the results started to come about more frequently. And as the results started to come back more frequently, I started to study why. And over time, after about a year's time, I started to understand what was taking place in the use of intrinsic strength and how come, and the alignment and very sophisticated form of engineering and movement and timing and everything that made things work out without using any kind of effort, and then developed effortless power. And that's how it got to be. And it took time then to work this in many different domains and whatnot, but that's the beginning, and that's how effortless power came to be born.
Thank you.